Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. It's going to be an interesting night.
Yes, we now have a moderator just at the last moment. And I think our moderator will delete the junk we are getting in the chats from the various troll accounts. So there we go. Shane has told everyone to stop. That's very good. Anyway, while we wait for that to happen, I'm going to do some sharing on Facebook. And maybe Lisa will do some sharing on Facebook as well if she's so inclined.
I don't log into Facebook anymore, Joe. But
Okay.
I'm sharing out on Twitter.
Okay, that'll be fine. And if you can if you can greet people who have arrived, other than the trolls, of course.
Yeah, that would be good. Hold on.
That would be very good. Hi, Dolores. How are you? It's great to see you here. I haven't been able to get you in as a moderator yet, but I may be figuring out how to do that with the URL you gave me. So I think that's going to happen soon. I haven't been able to get you in
Whoops, sorry, Joe.
yet, but I may be figuring out how to do that.
Come on, phone. There we go.
Yeah. Echoes and things, that's not a problem. We know how to handle those things. We can do that. I'm going to start adding a few groups here. We have a few very good groups to share to, like the Red Berets for Medicare for All. And we can share to a big Bernie Sanders group that we are very welcome in. And that should help. Where's that big Bernie Sanders group today? Now there's a group called MMT for the British People.
Oh, how wonderful. Is that a Facebook group?
Yes, that's a Facebook group, right? It is indeed a Facebook group. There it is. There are two groups that I usually go into. Let me get into the second one here. There it is. You can get a lot of good groups by just typing in BER.
Oh, sure. It'll all come up.
Yeah, a whole bunch of things come up when you do BER. Including a group for Shahed Buttar.
He's amazing.
He is. He's very brilliant.
I was so impressed with him the other day when he was when Sabby Sabs interviewed Shahid. He was just so real and so insightful. I was just like, wow. I was so glad I caught that.
Yes, I really hope that he is successful this time. He'll be a wonderful rep.
Yeah. Well, is he? I'm not sure if he said secret. Whoa. What did I just do? Can you still see me, Joe?
Can I still see you?
Yeah, you can. Okay, sorry. My window popped out.
Oh, you've got your red beret on.
Absolutely, I do. We got to take care of these red berets around here.
Yes, we do. I think we have shared enough. Now we get into. Okay, you all set?
Trying. There we go. Okay, yes.
I think you're done now. Right.
Mm-hmm.
There was a fake Lanadell in here, and there was also a real Lanadell.
Yeah, Lana's in here. Hi, Lana.
Hi, Alana. How you doing? And bye-bye to you, fake Lana. And Lisa says, hello, everyone. And Lisa says, welcome. Jeff Denton is here. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Jeff.
It's very nice to see you. And Lana Dell hates the clot. That's a fake Lana Dell because it says, Lisa, we will handle you. That's how we know it's not the right Lana Dell.
Yeah, I think I'm going to screenshot this stuff tonight.
Oh, really? That's good. That's a good idea. And Carmen says, Lisa, Shane, hello from the heart. Thank you, Carmen. And Lana says, you can stop us at ARTD Media. We will come back in greater numbers than before. I don't think so, because I think we will have greater numbers of moderators than before as well. So I think we're going to be able to handle you until you get tired. Anyway, here we are. We are convening tonight to talk politics, talk about what's happening with the reconciliation bill and other things that are happening, in Washington. And what's happening, of course, in the Medicare for All area. And Shane says, Lisa, let me know when you screenshot it. I'll delete them.
Oh, I'm good.
Carmen says, wow, that's a super pretty couch throw, Lisa. Where did you find it? Nice colors.
It is not a throw. It is a massive pillow. And honest to goodness, probably TJ Maxx or Home Goods, because I don't spend a lot of money on anything. And I love that thing. And it works in this living room, but it's a long story, Joe. But I should have painted the walls in this living room like 8 years ago, and I just haven't gotten around to it because I can't figure out what color to paint them. So, but thank you for the comment on the pillow.
How long has it been since you came back to Pennsylvania?
8 years.
Oh, gee, somehow I had the impression that it's only recently that you came back to Pennsylvania.
Well, I'm getting older, so like 5 years is a blip on the screen anymore. So when you only add 3 to that and consider that 2 of them were COVID, right, where everybody's sort of in a time warp. So when I realized, wow, it's been 8 years since we relocated from Washington, it's sort of, I don't know. I'm getting old, and 2, I just feel like we're all in a time warp. So yeah, we've been here for 8 years. We painted, I think, every other room in this house except this one.
Okay, so give me your thoughts on the current political situation. And I will give you mine, and we will go on from there, and we will explode this thing.
So I've got a lot of thoughts on this, Joe. I'm just going to go at it from the way that I think. There's been a
I
lot of
would hope that you wouldn't go at it any other way.
well, because it's not necessarily the take that you're going to hear. I'm just going to give you my take on it. There's been a lot of telegraphing through the media, through some of the reps, through some of the organizations, or what they call themselves, activist organizations, top-down organizations that do the Action Network stuff, send letters to ask their members to send letters to their reps. And there's been a lot of talk about the bill getting, don't worry about asking for a number, and we want them to include everything in the bill, even if they only fund everything a little bit, which to me was more to dumb down the public's expectations than it was anything politically strategic that made any sense. If you're going to not dumb down, if you're going to underfund programs, you're not going to get in that program what was intended. We need 12 weeks of family medical leave. 4 weeks of family medical leave doesn't do anybody a lot of good. Not when you've got to go out because you have something major going on. For a month isn't enough.
That's right.
It's just not.
Absolutely, it's not enough.
So 12 weeks is what every major developed country gives, at least. Some give more. And we're talking about when, your son or your daughter or your spouse get cancer or some other horrible medical catastrophe, emotional catastrophe, health catastrophe. You need that time.
Yeah, you need serious leave.
4 weeks
is no joke.
But 4 weeks is a joke. Okay, yeah. It's better than what we have. But you know what?
4 weeks.
Dogs. We don't need kids anymore.
I completely agree. 4 weeks is a terrible joke.
And then, let's just go to him. I heard, and I don't even know if any of this is true, Joe, but I heard that they took free college off the table altogether, which once again is begging the question, what are the Democrats doing? Really doing? Because he ran on that. And now the last article I saw earlier this morning from a quote unquote reputable source said that that's off the table. And you know how I feel about this, Joe. When you start, how many months ago now was it? 6 months ago we started hearing what was in this package? And now we're coming down to something that is ridiculously nothing when it comes to all these programs that we, the bill I heard, I didn't even know this. It started out at 10 trillion. Then it went to 6. And then the deal that the Democrats made with the Republicans was 3.5. 3.5, and they would pass the 1.5 infrastructure bill that is the one that is the corporate contracts. The 3.5 is the social programs that are going to help Main Street. And Main Street needed help 35 years ago. Now they're not doing that. I'm one that says kill the bill. Kill both of the bills. Kill the bills.
Yeah, me too. I am absolutely in favor of killing both the bills. When you kill both the bills, what is going to happen is that Biden and Pelosi suddenly move into crisis mode. They're going to put extremely heavy pressure on the progressives. But as long as the progressives keep saying no, and it's apparent to Pelosi that she has 30 to 40 progressives who will not move, they will then at long last turn to cinema, and Manchin. They will say, look, we have no other option but to put the $3.5 trillion bill on the floor. If you don't want it, you're going to have to vote against it. You're going to have to go on record.
So I don't know if you saw this, but last Friday, when he was being interviewed on CNN, he actually said that he is considering killing the filibuster. Now, here's where I'm at with this, Joe.
Okay, before you say where you're at on this, he was saying he was thinking of killing the filibuster for the voting rights bill.
Oh, no, but then he said, and maybe more.
And maybe more. He did say, and maybe more. Absolutely.
Okay, so here's where we got to go with that. There's a chink in the armor, right? I think that they need to kill both bills. This is going to ask a lot because everybody's going to have to man up here and find their fortitude. They need to kill the bills. They need to kill the filibuster. And then they need to break up all of the plans that are in that reconciliation bill. They need to come to the floor one at a time.
I think so too.
And then, yeah, you know what? For the first time,
them on record.
Yes.
Each one.
Yes.
Having to say yes or no to each one. Then you have ads. You have ads as they say no to each one. Joe Manchin said no to $15 an hour. I know that's not in the bill, but you put the $15 an hour back. Joe Manchin said no to $15 an hour. Joe Manchin said no to the PRO Act.
Right.
Joe Manchin said no to family leave. And it's just like a drumbeat every week. Joe Manchin said no. Joe Manchin said no. Joe Manchin said no. Eventually, that is going to break Joe Manchin because he's going to know that he's going to face a blizzard of ads in the primary campaign about all the bills that he voted against that people wanted.
Well, let's take that one step further because Joe Manchin's just the villain of the moment.
Right.
Okay? You know it and I know it, right? Everybody who's starting to pick up on this knows this stuff, right?
Yes.
The hell with Joe Manchin. I'm sick of hearing him. Here's what I want. I want every rep to have to vote on every single one of those plans. I want them to have to answer to their constituency and vote it down. And then I and everybody else out here is going to use that when they run. Because here's the deal, guys. We're getting nowhere. I am not buying into this vote blue no matter who ever again. Anybody else that wants to do that, stick around for another 50 years. You'll land here. Hopefully we'll all be here by then. I'm done with it. I have been a Democrat since the day I was born. I was born into a labor family, union family, Democrats through and through. I am so finished with all of this crap. We need them on record. All of them.
Yes.
All of them. Because we're going to get wiped out in 2022 anyway. So let's make it count.
Right. And also the big point here is if you get rid of the filibuster and they have to go on record on each one, the Republicans have to go on record on each one.
Exactly.
They don't get to go on record just in the whole reconciliation bill.
One time, one vote. Yeah.
Holding. It's going to be necessary for Susan Collins and for everybody else to vote against the 50.
Connor Lamb.
All of them. All of those people are going to have to vote on each one.
Pony up. Line them up. Make them vote. Point of order, call the vote.
Get them on record. Force the vote.
Yep.
It's bad.
On every single piece of it.
Force the vote on every piece of it. I love it.
Yep.
That's exactly what I want them to do too.
What's the campaign? We need to come up with messaging. We need a messaging, Joe. We need to come up with a messaging for this. I've already been tweeting out kill the bills. Oh, and by the way, one of the riders we need to throw in there is to codify Roe v. Wade. Like, who's sitting on that bill? That's in some committee. Somebody's sitting on it. We need to start finding this stuff out. Who's sitting in what committee? Who's buried these things? There's plenty of protests to happen.
Right, but I'll bet. Well, maybe I won't say I'll bet, but maybe I would bet that it's probably Richie Neal.
Well, yeah, but see, the public doesn't know who these players are.
Yeah, I know they
The
don't.
public doesn't know who these players are. So when you start bringing up all of these individual plans that the American public want, and the same names keep coming up, who the hell's Richie Neal? Oh, well, let's see. Ways and Means Committee. Well, what does that mean? It's a civics lesson, and everybody needs one now.
It's a civics lesson. Not only is it a civics lesson, when they learn who he is, they'll also find he's the most successful donor recipient from the pharmaceutical and healthcare industries in the Congress, because they knew if they got him, they could block a Medicare for All bill.
Mm-hmm.
They could block any major changes to healthcare. So they bought the hell out of him, and they buy the hell out of him every single Congress in exactly the same way.
So here's the thing, Joe, and I don't think that most people understand this. Back 40 years ago, they didn't do these monster pieces of legislation like this on the regular. That's not how it went. They'd put bills together. Some of them were bigger, but now, you'll go through a session in we haven't done jack shit. How many bills?
That is absolutely right. But it wasn't just 40 years ago that we didn't do these giant bills. We didn't even do these giant bills 30 years ago.
Yeah, I guess we didn't. We didn't.
Yeah, these massive 2,000-page bills, that dates from the 21st century.
It's all crap.
Even Bill Clinton's healthcare bill, the managed care thing that he tried to get passed, that tremendously complex thing, destined to failure because no one could understand it, even that was only 1,300 pages. It wasn't 2,300 pages like the damned Affordable Care Act was. Who knew what was going on in the Affordable Care Act? Only Liz Fowler, who wrote it, knew.
There really needs to be a working Congress now, because I don't think that most people truly understand how that's supposed to go. And if you start putting these reps on record with these votes, they're going to vote on child care today. They're going to vote on child care, pre-K kindergarten, negotiating drug prices, right? The fact that they threw that on as some rider that somebody could just, no, I don't want this, line item veto. What? That alone has to be a massive piece of legislation. We need to understand this. And when we have to put all of them on record, it will take the pressure off of the progressives.
It will.
They have them hostage right now.
Yes, it will. What people have to remember, and I don't think any of them really understand that, when the American Rescue Plan came up for a vote, as everybody knows, the $15 an hour provision, was in it. It passed the House. Then it went to the Senate. And Chuck Schumer took it out before the American Rescue Plan hit the floor. Now, Democrats needed all 50 votes. Chuck Schumer had to have informed Bernie Sanders that he was taking it out, because Bernie was the chairman of the Budget Committee. He had to know that Bernie was at least not going to say, okay, if you take it out, I'm not going to vote for the American Rescue Plan. Bernie had an opportunity to say that. He did not say it. He made the judgment unilaterally by himself, the American people need this stimulus stuff really, really bad. So I'm going to make a judgment that I'm going to let them take the $15 an hour out. And then I'm going to make a big show of it. because what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put it back in through adding an amendment. So what does that do? Well, Bernie goes forward and he brings his amendment to the floor. And the opponents of $15 an hour, all they have to do is vote against that amendment. That's all they have to do. They don't have to go on record as defeating the whole American Rescue Plan. If Bernie insisted that that bill hit the floor with $15 an hour in it, there's no way that Manchin and Sinema and the other 6 people who were against putting the amendment back in, there's no way they would have voted against the American Rescue Plan, because you just see the headlines now. They would be accused of voting against $1,400 for each individual, $2,800 for each couple, $5,600 for a family with 2 children. They would have been accused of that. They wouldn't have voted against the American Rescue Plan. Biden, Bernie, Nancy Pelosi, the leaders, they all could have had the $15 an hour in if they wanted it. The truth is, they did not want it. But then it goes back to the House. It goes back to the House. The House Democrats had the option of saying, we're not voting for the bill this way. We passed it over to the Senate with the $15 an hour in it. That $15 an hour is going back in, or we're not voting for it. They had the option to say that. And Pelosi would not have had any option herself. She would have had to have put that back in, or she would have been defeated on that. Again, the progressives folded at that point when they did not have to fold. They could have dared her not to put that back in. I think she would have put that back in. What she should have done is put that back in and call for a conference committee.
Okay, I agree with everything you've said, Joe, but I, in my mind, am thinking about the fact that it was early on. I am sure that everybody was told that we're going to fall in line behind, what's coming down from leadership. We're going to get this thing passed because people are hurting. And I really believe that they were going to kill this filibuster. I was freaking shocked that Joe didn't want to do that. And I don't think that enough people understand what that means. I think it's something that everybody has. I mean, Twitter is not the slice of the American public. It's a smarter, more involved, more sophisticated group of individuals. But most people, they hear the word filibuster, but they don't necessarily understand what that means. Okay?
Yes, they don't understand its implications.
Correct.
The way Congress works.
Correct.
How different things would be if Congress worked in a different way.
Right. So saying that, okay, this all comes down to public pressure, Joe. Their voters and the pressure that they're going to get from their voters. If you're throwing around the filibuster, not so much. If you're talking about dumbing down all of these programs that people were like, oh my God, I think the American public is afraid to hope for this stuff at this point. That's how bad this situation is. I also believe that everything that had gone on 4 years prior was just so traumatizing, on top of it with COVID, that I do think that there were reasons why nobody wanted to rock the boat too hard. I'm not making excuses for them. I am just saying that there was a lot going on in the general public that they really wanted to, okay, we're going to do this stuff. We're going to tamp this down. We're not going against the White House, right? Not right now. Hey, the honeymoon's freaking over, okay? If COVID's over, which basically if you walk out your front door, it's over. then it's time. The honeymoon is over. Now, I don't know how bad the pressure is up there on Capitol Hill. I do know that a lot of the progressives are freshman senator or freshman congresswomen people, right? Or second term, but still not the seniors. They're green. They have Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House. She's been there forever. She's a damn dynasty. We've talked about that. She has a lot of pull. You've got Schumer, same deal. Been there forever. They're the staunch, right?
These are abstractions.
What do you mean they're abstractions?
Well, if you say she has pull, yeah, she has lots and lots of pull. She has lots and lots of money.
She can tell the networks that they don't want Joe Biden to talk. Okay? And it gets caught on a live mic. We don't want the president. We don't want him talking. Okay?
Right. I agree. But what I'm saying is that for the individual rep, those notions are abstractions to them. When it comes down to a decision that they have to make on a bill, when it's a yes or no decision, it's always you making that particular decision.
Well, except when Nancy Pelosi comes up to you on the floor and makes you change your vote in front of the American public.
She came up to me on the floor and started yelling at me on the floor. My response would be heard all over the world.
I agree with you.
All over the world. Your response would be heard over the world.
So you and I are hard asses, and we're used to dealing with that
kind of thing. Why did she dare to go up to AOC and do that? Because she knew AOC was going to cave, because AOC had been caving for months, including when she voted for Nancy Pelosi on January 3rd. So it always comes down to this. Does the individual have the character in the end to vote the way their conscience says they ought to vote?
I don't know. I think that it's not necessarily that simple.
Well, look, I suppose I am saying it's that simple. I'm not saying that I expect that everyone is going to act that way.
Right. I agree with you.
I am saying, and maybe that's why we're not in the Congress.
Oh, I wouldn't be up there for all the damn tea in China. However, I do think that there are ways that we can get the pressure off of them, okay? And we need to redirect that pressure onto these damn centrist blue dogs.
And I agree, you're very right about that.
And the Republicans, right? Because quite frankly, they're all the same.
The way we can do that is to get rid of the filibuster and bring those bills down. We both agree on that.
Vote.
What the American public doesn't understand, and what I hope they get out of this chat, is the idea that once the filibuster is gone and it's all by a majority vote, you can get them to put each of these bills on the floor as a separate bill to get everyone on record, and that changes the whole dynamic. In other words, think about the situation from March 15th, until now. You have people putting together this giant package bill
that nobody knows what's in it.
And Biden talking irrelevancies about, we got to be bipartisan about this. And since we're restricted to only this one bill, what we have to do then is to be bipartisan about this whole damn complex bill. And so it's set up as a target for Manchin and for Sinema, and for the Republicans.
And for the Democrats.
And if there were a situation where the progressives any package bill, we want them
one at a time. Parade them out.
One at a time, and we won't vote for anything that is not a one at a time bill. We want everybody to go on record. And once you understand that's the dynamic, it's a different world in the Senate. It's a different world in the Congress.
C-SPAN's views, we will shut them down. If we could get that to happen, where the American public could actually sit down, pull it up after the fact, or sit down during the day and watch it, like I do a lot, and watch them go through the process of voting on these things, and, you know, referendums or amendments or whatever you want, because the American public would be interested in that. Okay, they talk about this reconciliation bill and this big montage of a thing, that monolithic thing that nobody understands, and is embarrassed to even admit they don't understand what the hell it means, right? That's what's going on. If you were saying, you know what, the House is going to take up free college today, and by the way, Katie Porter is going to introduce a $50,000 debt forgiveness rider to this one, right? And maybe they take it out. Fine. You can take those things out, but you get something else for it. And if it doesn't get on that, if it doesn't get on the child care bill, or the, then you put it on the free college bill. And if you can't get it on there, you put it on something else, but you have the opportunity to do it. It's finagling.
You have the opportunity to bargain.
Yes.
And you also have the opportunity to make them go on record.
Right. And once you have to once they have to stand up and vote that crap down, now we're playing ball. Now we play ball. Right now, they've cut the strings. This is a puppet marionette show.
Yep. That's exactly right. So, I completely agree, but the question is, when push comes to shove, Biden knows all about this too. So
yes, he does. He knows it very well.
When push comes to shove, will he really get rid of the filibuster? He might do it on the Voting Rights Act, because Democrats are facing a bloodbath.
Can I
don't pass that?
Can I just ask a question here? What the hell is that? Why is this coming from the Oval? Why the hell is the Oval in the Senate and the House on this level?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Well, you should be mad about it, because it's not normal.
It is not normal, but it's what we've been seeing now for some time.
It's wrong, though, Joe.
It is wrong. It is wrong. It's supposed to be coming from Schumer.
Yes. So what's going on with Schumer and this impotence? Because it's infuriating to me. And he's getting off scot-free right now.
Yes.
There are separation here. You have the House, you've got the Senate, and you've got the Oval. Okay? And the Oval is not supposed to be making these decisions. And it's pissing me off.
Right. And why is Biden making these decisions? Well,
because he can.
Decisions, one, because he can, but two,
you're letting him.
He's giving cover to Schumer. He's covering Schumer.
He's covering his own damn ass. He ain't covering Schumer. Schumer's playing along.
He's shielding Schumer, though.
No, he's not. Schumer is just doing what he's told. He's not running cover for Schumer. He's covering his own ass.
But what I'm saying is, when he takes the decision as to whether the filibuster is going to be gone or not onto himself, then people will blame him either this way or that way. They won't blame Schumer. And the point is, they should blame Schumer, because
people take an oath to
it's Schumer who can activate the nuclear option in the Senate. Any day of the week, he can activate the nuclear option. Now, at that point,
he would have to go against the president. Right? I mean, that's really what we're talking about. But the president doesn't belong in this decision making, is what I'm trying to say, Joe. You know that as well as I do. The House is supposed to be separate from the Senate. The Senate is supposed to be separate from the Oval. The House is supposed to be separate from the Oval. They are three separate arms.
They are three separate arms, but there's no supposed to about this. In the way politics has developed over many, many, many years now, the Oval Office has influence. Of course it has influence.
It does have influence, but it doesn't get to usurp it. Well, let me put it to you this way, Joe. They're not supposed to be this way. They're not supposed to hand over this kind of power. But it's been happening now for so long. My fear is that they don't know any better anymore.
Yes, I agree. The executive branch has managed to usurp a lot of the independence and a lot of the authority, of Congress, especially when it comes to foreign policy, but in the domestic area as well. Congress is unwilling to perform its functions. Even if you take into account what was happening with the TPP and the TISA and the trade agreements in 2015, 2016. They passed a trade promotion authority, which gave the president the right, to negotiate a treaty and then go back to Congress and put it up for a yes or no vote in the Congress without the Congress being able to amend it. And Congress passed that, handed that authority over to the president. Okay? That was in the Democratic administration.
There's not enough discourse going on.
But they did that just in time for Hillary to get beat for the presidency. And so the TPA authority then was turned over to Trump. And he had that authority. Of course, they weren't envisioning that. What they envisioned was that Hillary would have that authority. But the point is, they gave away their authority to amend.
They gave away our authority. The House is ours.
The House is ours, but the Senate is also ours in a certain way. They gave away congressional authority.
They did, but they've kneecapped the people's house. I mean, they've gutted it. Okay?
Who kneecapped the people's house? Nancy Pelosi kneecapped.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's this bad.
She did that, at that time in the following way. You had 188 Democrats in the House, and she was the minority leader. And 160 Democrats were against handing over the TPA. In other words, they were against voting for it. 7/8 of the caucus. 7/8 of the caucus. So, Pelosi, well, she wanted that authority to go to the president. She wanted to hand over that authority. But she didn't want to be seen as going against 7/8 of the caucus because it was her caucus. So what she did is she declared herself and the leadership to be neutral and let people vote the way they wanted, refusing to exert any party discipline on that particular vote. So what happened was 28 of the Democrats defected over to the Republican side on that. That's what made it possible for the TPA to pass, because most of the Republicans were in favor of the TPA. She didn't do anything to hold party discipline at all. At the last minute, she came out against the TPA so she could align herself. She could align herself with 160 other Democrats. So she made a show of that. But her failure to impose discipline is why the TPA passed. That is why 28 Democrats went over to the other side. If she had exerted party discipline, no more than 10 Democrats would have gone over to the other side, and the TPA would have failed. So she manipulated that.
She wanted that to happen.
She wanted that to happen. She wanted to turn over the authority to the executive branch on that and not have a fight in Congress about that, because she knew 7/8 of the Democrats were against it. She didn't want to have a split in her party in order to do what the president wanted.
You guys, it's like it's the best damn, series you could ever watch. It's part of the reason why I think that the news is so ridiculous, is to keep people from paying attention to what's really going on.
Yep. And they're not willing to spend the time, of course, to learn what's going on.
It's fascinating, Joe. If we just had a legitimate journalism, independent journalism, if we had news coverage like our parents and our grandparents had the luxury of having, where they actually reported news.
If we had the kind of news and opinion coverage that we're supplying now, the public would be much more educated. The very thing we're doing now. You don't get any of this on the mainstream shows.
No, you don't.
They're giving short discussions. It's basically bite-sized news. It's all with slogans or framing that biases things in a particular way. There are certain things the journalists cannot say, because if they say those things, they're going to be fired. And they're used to living the good life. They're used to getting paid $150,000 a year and up. They've got families. They have kids. It's not worth it to them to tell the truth. They've been bound with golden chains. That's what we see. And we see our democracy going down the drain because of it.
Well, I see the earth burning up and, the ecosystem ending, right? So I guess what I'm saying is it's now or never.
Yeah, and I agree that it's now or never. But then we also have to consider, and we have to say, since it's now or never, what do we do now? What is to be done? Well, we have a direct action on October 30th, but we have the Day of the Dead that's coming up.
We need a lot more direct action.
A lot more direct action. What
we need right now is to pressure that White House to kill, and pressure Schumer to kill that filibuster.
Yep.
And we need to empower these progressives so that they're so boxed out right now. They are so pressured right now. And all of these damn other representatives taking special interest money are running the table. They're sitting back, fat cats. Jesus, God in heaven, the majority leader in the damn Senate is like under the radar. You never even hear of him. Damn it. And there's the other thing that kills me. The whips. Why don't we just do away with that position right now? Because nobody uses it.
I don't know. Who knows who the Senate whip is? I know who the Senate whip is. It's Dick Durbin. But
where's Waldo? Dick Durbin. Where's Waldo? That's his other name.
People know who Dick Durbin is. How many people know that he has more seniority than Chuck Schumer? That on a seniority basis, he should be the majority leader right now.
Why isn't he?
I think that he's not the majority leader because he's always the kind of guy, who doesn't beat his chest and just sort of goes along.
Where's Durbin from? What state?
Illinois.
That's what I thought. Okay. Well, yeah, it's just more sleek and glitzy, and there's a hell of a lot more money in New York, right?
That was part of the reason Schumer was a better fundraiser than Durbin.
Well, sure. I mean, that's why we have Nancy.
That's why Harry Reid handed the reins over to him as the leader of the party. But he didn't have the seniority, of Durbin. on
They
seniority.
should never be in the House or the Senate that long.
Okay, as far as the whips in the House are concerned, they whip for Nancy. The House Majority Leader is Steny Hoyer. And the House Whip, if I remember correctly, is our old friend, Jim Clyburn.
Yeah.
So they whip for what Nancy Pelosi wants. And she has all her committee chairs who are all subservient to her. She protects them. She funds a lot of what they do. She herself raises $300 million a year. That's the structure. It's a hierarchical structure in the House. The rules support the hierarchical structure in the House. Why isn't it possible to have a rule that you get a floor vote if you've got 20 co-sponsors for a bill? 20
Because they changed the rules. Because they won't change the rules to make it so.
They won't change the rules to make it so. What should have happened, and you've heard me say that before, I'm sure, is on January 3rd, those progressives had the votes to block Nancy Pelosi till the cows came home. She would have had to have withdrawn. Then they were in a position, okay, the progressives, to negotiate with possible successors. And one of the elements of the price could have been, we get floor votes if we've got 20 co-sponsors for a bill. That's one of the things they could have forced on the new speaker in return for their support, because the new speaker would have needed their support. And by the way, the new speaker would have had to have been to the left of Nancy Pelosi. The reason why is because the center of gravity of the caucus in the House is to the left of Nancy Pelosi now. It wasn't always that way, but it is that way now.
Thank God. And we should all take a pat on the back for that. I mean, I know that people are disappointed. I really do. But we did make some great gains in that sense. What I'm so disappointed with right now, and it's deliberate, it is truly deliberate, is, there are so many politicians up there with special interests, whether they got a blue practice jersey on or a red one. And I've said that a million times. That's all it is. That, all of this public financing of these politicians now, I don't want to give any money to anybody anymore. It's heartbreaking, okay? Because if you don't have enough money behind you, you're not going to get elected. There are some races now that they won't even let you on the state debate stage if you don't have, what was Maryland? She needed $450,000 to get it to debate in the governor's debate.
It was $490,000.
$490,000, right?
Yes,
so
ridiculous.
Well, because what we're going to have is just more and more of these, incumbents or darlings of the party with all the money. They're not going to give it to the individual who's more progressive, right? So the only reason why we got some of these people in was because we were willing to give to them. Now, I don't think that same vigor is going to be there.
No, I don't think so either.
So,
I don't think so either. But one thing I'm really pissed off about is the way Jayapal has handled this particular situation.
I never liked Jayapal.
She has been a terrible disappointment, just a terrible disappointment. She's now saying, of course, that they have insisted from the beginning that they will not pass the infrastructure bill until the wording of the reconciliation bill is finalized. Now
that maybe they'll have it down to $500 billion by then.
That
Who cares?
is a retreat from the previous position, which was we will not pass the infrastructure bill until the reconciliation bill is on the president's desk. That was the previous position.
Can I interrupt here for a second?
You
Remember when we were talking about this 2 months ago?
always interrupt. You can always interrupt.
Remember when we were talking about this 2 months ago, Joe? And I said that they need to cut that infrastructure bill, not the social infrastructure bill, the infrastructure bill.
Yes, yes.
That's the damn thing that's intact, and they're whittling down the one for the people. Okay,
First thing they
that's
should
on purpose.
the first thing they should have done when they started to cut the stuff out of the social infrastructure bill, the first thing they should have done is to have said, look, we are not voting for the 50% of the infrastructure bill that is going to private interests. We will insist that all of that be cut out. If you cut out anything in the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, because that was the compromise we made, that was supposed to be the final compromise. And that is going to be the final compromise if you want to pass anything. You're not going to get to send any of that $600 billion to your donors if you don't vote for the reconciliation bill.
Well, notice that thing is intact, isn't it?
That thing is entirely intact.
And it'll stay intact because nobody's talking about cutting it. Why not?
I don't know. If I were the progressives, I would be talking about cutting 50% of it. And the specific 50% that were going to go to the donors. We know what that 50% was. We know where all that pork is in that bill. There's pork for the donors. It's 50% of that bill. Jayapal knows exactly where it is. She should be threatening to cut all that stuff.
Well, like I said, when we were in that PDA, when we attended that PDA meeting, Progressive Democrats of America meeting, and I said to them, why would we be writing letters to these representatives and signaling that the American people are okay with cutting that bill? Okay? I'm going to extrapolate this for a second. Tell me if you see this. This feels like one big setup so that they can make a claim to the American people that socialism didn't work because nobody voted for it and nobody wanted it.
I'm not sure if that's the setup, but
it's going to be the outcome.
What it looks like is they're getting bargained down, and bargained down, and they will not tell the truth. Once they get to a final bill, and this includes Bernie, they're going to tell us about all the wonderful things that are in the final bill and why we should think the final bill is a great achievement, even though it's been cut by 50% from what was supposed to be the final compromise.
So we're going to strike like hell. We are going to strike like
That's what we have to do. But apart from striking like hell, we have to be honest, and we have to tell
they're not going to be honest with us.
Represented. No, I'm not saying they have to be honest. I'm saying we have to be honest. We have to tell them, look, we know what you did. We know this is a shitty bill. We know it was cut by, 80 to 85% from what the original bill was supposed to be. In nobody's language is that a victory. In nobody's mind is that a victory. It is an immense failure on your part because you refuse to say no, because you can't ever say no. You can't ever say we are walking away from the table.
I don't know what the answer is, Joe.
That's the answer.
Well, I know that, Joe, but but let's think about this from the perspective of how do we motivate? How do we motivate them? I don't know how to motivate them.
Well, you motivate them. I don't know if you can motivate them in this way, but what you need to tell them is you will be primaried.
Well, they're going to be primaried.
You
They
will
will be.
be safe. You will not be safe because you are still among the most lefty people in the caucus, because we're evaluating you from the standpoint of success or failure. And we see one hell of a big failure here. So if somebody steps up to primary you, we're supporting them. We're funding them. We're going along with them because you failed. And you cannot sell us the lies that you created a great victory here. They're trying to gaslight us that this final bill is going to be a good bill and we should like it and we should be happy with it. They tried that with the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, but the left isn't going to buy that, okay? And here's the other thing that's happened, Joe, and we've talked about this. All of the seniors who really didn't have a dog in the fight in the Medicare for All things that have been going on, really intense in the last 5-6 years, right? I mean, I know that fight's been there before, but Medicare for All, really 6 years now, right? They didn't have a dog in that fight because they had their Medicare. And unless you were very poor, you had your supplement, things were okay, right? This year, right now, my parents, they know enough about insurance. They didn't want their Medicare Advantage plans. They knew that was garbage, right? They travel around the country because they have that ability to do so. And they said to me the other day, it's costing us $1,000 a month for our supplement. And I'm like, oh, welcome to the party. This is what we've all been dealing with now for 13 years or so, right? And it's just got escalated all the way through to really, really bad. That is the Democratic stronghold voting bloc. And they're not only angry, they're engaged. They haven't been before because they haven't felt it. Now they're feeling it. And the worst part about it is in another year or two, they're not going to be able to even get a supplement. They're going to get forced on to these advantage type things or into these networks.
That's already happened at Kaiser.
Right.
And also, it's going to be even worse, okay, in a year or two, because things are going to be turned over to these direct contracting entities.
Right. That's what I mean.
Subject to even less competition than in the Medicare Advantage program. And that's even worse for people.
So here's the thing, though. I do think that the American public is awake. Even the ones that have been asleep for a long time are awake because it's their kids and it's their grandkids now. There are no little islands. There's not a lot of islands anymore in the stream, right? People are. They're not making the money they used to make. Their kids, their grandkids, they're getting squeezed from both sides, and now they can't even count on their supplements to their Medicare to cover them the way they want to be covered, to be able to go to the Mayo Clinic if they need to go, or to the Cleveland Clinic if they need to go. Shit, they can't even go down out of the damn county because they're out of network, right? They can't even go visit their damn grandkids if they're lucky enough, right? Now everybody feels it. We weren't here 6 years ago. We're here now. We're here. The fear I have, though, is that people are going to be so angry and so disillusioned by this that either people aren't going to vote
or they'll vote for Trump.
Oh, I'm not even talking presidential. I'm talking 2022.
Yeah, in 2022, they're going to vote for the Republicans.
I am afraid of that. Okay, so now what, right?
And that is going to turn the country over to Trump. And not only will they vote at the federal level,
all the more reason why we got to kill the filibuster. We need to lean on all of that.
They are going at the state level to vote for the Republicans too.
Yes.
Just the way they did in 2010.
Unless we can get them to vote green.
Fail big at the federal level, they're also going to get their clocks cleaned at the state level. It's going to be a slaughter in 2022. Unless they can get rid of the filibuster and pass those voting rights bills.
So I think that there's our answer. We've got to get on them. We've got to get them to kill that filibuster, to even have a freaking head above water.
The first thing to do is get them to kill the filibuster to pass the voting rights bills. And if we can possibly do it when they pass the voting rights bills,
it needs amended.
We have to get them to amend those bills so they use Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution to cut the Supreme Court out of the action.
Well, and it needs amended because it's going to devastate third-party ability. They have to fix that.
They have to fix that.
Because I don't even bring that up because I'm so torn by that damn bill.
Yes, but
I'm so pissed off about that bill.
Yeah, I'm pissed off about that bill, but it still has to be the first step to pass that bill.
But if it takes third party, but Joe, we cannot disempower third parties, and that's what that goddamn legislation does.
We cannot disempower. It's true. We cannot disempower third parties. However, we have to pass a voting rights bill, which is at least going to stop a Republican sweep in 2022. And by the way, we also need to pass it.
I get that, but I don't get it.
We also need to pass it because it will demonstrate that the filibuster can be gotten rid of for anything, anytime they want to do it.
Why?
It's important to show the American people that if the Congress really wants to pass something, it can get rid of the filibuster to do it.
Not related to the voting rights. Okay, gotcha. I lost my train of thought. This stuff just gets me so angry. There's something wrong every step of the way.
Right, but that's
all of it.
One good thing about the voting rights bill, that it has to be passed through getting rid of the filibuster. And they have to then demonstrate to people they can get rid of the filibuster. Then we can pressure them to get rid of the filibuster to amend the voting rights bill. Then we can pressure them to get rid of the filibuster to put bills on the floor one at a time. One at a time. We can pressure them to get rid of the filibuster for all legislation. Say, look, we know you got rid of it. In order to pass that legislation, we are
going. The Republicans did it. This isn't the first time they've done this.
What the Republicans did is they got rid of it to pass tax cut legislation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they did.
Well, didn't they do it for the whole? They were out of regular order for the whole damn session, weren't they?
They might not have been in regular order, but the filibuster still applied.
They didn't nuke they nuked the filibuster for the whole session, I thought.
No.
Just for the voting rights? Just for the tax bill?
The tax bill, actually, the way they did the tax bill is they did a recon bill. Okay?
Yeah, that's what I thought. They did a recon.
Right. And they got a favorable decision from the parliamentarian. But they were ready to override the parliamentarian again. If she ruled against them, they were going to override her. But there was very little resistance, actually, from the Democrats. What they got rid of the filibuster for, of course, was to confirm the judicial nominees for the Supreme Court.
That's it. I remember that. Yes.
They got rid of
Yes.
it for.
Yes. Yes.
Obama said today he wanted to get rid of the filibuster.
Who did?
Obama.
Oh, because he's got to rehab himself for all the other shit he did this week.
For example, he could have gotten rid of the filibuster in 2009 if he had wanted to. It would have been very, very easy. He knew it was undemocratic in 2009. He wanted the filibuster there as an excuse, so he wouldn't have to explain why he wouldn't pass all the other things people wanted.
Give him a couple of glasses of wine and he'll tell you he's a moderate Republican on camera.
Yeah, I mean, that guy is so full of shit. It's incredible. Okay, we are going to need a team of 4 or 5 moderators, I think.
Oh, do we have a bunch of trolls in here?
I think we have the same troll using a piece of software, different kinds of names, but Shane has been trying to block it, and he's been throwing people out, and they come back again, and they do it again. So it's not going to take a single moderator. It's probably going to take about 3 or 4 to get this under control. So we're going to need a number of people to pitch in. Okay, I know who I can ask, and we'll see if by tomorrow I can't arrange this. Okay, but we'll have to see. Okay, so we're agreed anyway that where we have to pressure right now is we have to pressure to get rid of the filibuster.
Yeah, we do.
And that's probably the most important thing that we can do.
So Comrade Misty asked if you would have her on your show.
If I would have her on my show, I'd love to have her on my show.
Well, you know what? I wish I would have pointed that out to you today. But I was doing other things. We could have had her on now, but we should have her on. Like, if you can, the sooner you can have her on, the better. Because first of all, she is so cool. And I would love to bring her into this mix, and we could talk about this so that we can socialize it across the podcasters, the networks. Then we got to get to the left news, and we really need to come at this all at once. We got to get everybody to buy in. We have to pressure them to kill this filibuster, and we need to put it in talking points so that they can be conveyed well. So that everybody can get behind this, because this is it. This is it. If we don't do this now,
if we don't do this now, it's probably all gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone.
If we don't do this now, we probably will end up with a dictatorship in 2025. And by the way, on the road to that, we'll probably get more and more of these one-party states where things are locked down in those states by ALEC. That's going to happen, again and again as we
Wait a minute, what do you mean?
Well, but most of the Republican states are passing the gerrymander bills, and the voter suppression bills. So they're basically institutionalizing one-party rules, in their states, in the red states. They're all going to be one-party states. There won't be any possibility of converting them as long as the Republicans are able to pass these bills and keep a foothold in one of the houses of in each of these states.
Well, then you know what's going to happen, Joe. They're going to open up the Constitution and they're going to rewrite it, and that's going to be the end of this.
That is very possibly the case unless we stop it from the bottom through direct action that they are not able to resist.
We need to strike like hell. We
We
need to open up that. We need to push for that filibuster, and we need to pressure them.
Have the mutual aid funds, but right now, right away, you are quite right. We have to get rid of the filibuster. Okay, right now. In some ways, some of the direct actions that we're focusing on, they seem like they're good ideas, and they are good ideas at some level. Of course, the Day of the Dead is a good idea.
We have to get everybody to understand the urgency of the filibuster.
Right. And we have to get them focused on getting rid of the filibuster, because that is the one thing that could do so much to change the situation. Okay. There's also another thing, okay, that we could do, but it's not as important, okay, as getting rid of the filibuster. There is a maneuver in the House that can be used to get rid of Nancy Pelosi right now.
Yes, vacate the chair. That's right.
Yeah.
Vacate the chair. Okay, exactly. You cannot get a vote on vacating the chair. The only way to get a vote under the present rules is to have a party caucus actually make that motion.
And the Progressive Caucus can do it.
The Progressive Caucus is an official party caucus. It has a budget, actually, from the parties. So it can run a vacate the chair motion against Nancy Pelosi. But in order for them to do it, of course, the point of pressure has to be Jayapal. She has to be harassed. She has to be pressured. She has to have so much pressure put on her that she has to run the vacate the chair motion. That would give the more lefty of the progressives the opportunity to do what they would not do on January 3rd, which is to replace Pelosi and get someone in there who is more friendly to their programs. That is another effective thing that could be done right now. And by the way, the Day of the Dead protest can play into that. It can be the opening shot in such a campaign to get rid of her. So I think maybe we have to start to orient the people who are going to run, the Day of the Dead protest to the idea that maybe this should be the opening shot that will lead to a vacate of the chair action, where we can force the vote against her and get her out of there, because she has been so damaging. What if there had been some other speaker who would have insisted the $15 an hour stay in the American Rescue Plan? I mean, just think of it.
Well, we would have had something different, Joe, if Citizens United wouldn't have passed. I mean, I hear everything you're saying, and we all know that procedurally this can we can do this. But the bottom line herein is that they are corporate agency.
Yes.
And I'm terrified that this isn't going to work.
We can get rid of CU anytime the Democratic caucus decides to get rid of CU. It just has to pass new campaign finance laws and use Article 3, Section 2 to cut the Supreme Court out.
That's it? You don't have to go through a constitutional amendment or anything?
Eventually, you have to go through the constitutional amendment, but that's going to take 6 to 7 years to get through. In the meantime, you have to stop the funds that are flowing. That can be done through a campaign finance law, but the campaign finance law has to have the verbiage from Article 3, Section 2, stopping the Supreme Court from reviewing the campaign finance law. If it cannot, cannot overturn it. So that's it. Okay, let's move to the comments other than comments from the multitude.
You know what's so funny, Joe? Let me just say this before you start reading these comments. We're talking about running a campaign to take out the Speaker of the House, and these trolls actually think they're going to make some sort of a difference. It's like fucking hysterical. Excuse me, Mom.
Yes, it really is hysterical. I mean, I don't even know what they're fighting for.
They don't either. They don't either. Trust me.
I think what they're doing is they're trying to start up the fight again.
Could be.
Red Berets and RP.
Well, listen, trolls. We have plenty of fights. Not with you.
The trolls we're looking at are probably Clinton trolls. That's what I
think they're Sally Albright trolls.
Sally Albright's trolls.
They are. She was in the feed. Wait.
Troll armies.
She was in the feed in the wee hours of the morning last night. I stumbled over her and I'm like, what the hell is Sally Albright doing in this feed? And then this shit went on. Okay. If you go through and you audit, you look at these troll accounts, look at all their followers, look at all the people they're following. It's a big bot farm. I spent 2 hours today screenshotting all of it. This is just a big fucking troll farm. Oh, I'm so mad and I'm swearing and I apologize, everybody. But this is so ugly.
You can swear. We're all comfortable with swearing here.
It's just a big troll farm. And I'm like, because Sally's got me blocked, okay? So I had to go through an incognito to be able to even see it. And I'm like, Sally, I haven't come across Sally in years. And then, boom, here we are.
Well, she's been running troll farms, I think, continuously.
But not in our circles. She hasn't been in our world.
Yeah, she hasn't been in our circles. It may be that we're getting too visible. And
well, we are, because we're winning. Even though we're all losing. Like we're about to go circle the drain. Anyhow, go ahead. Sorry.
It's all right. It's quite right. Okay, I'm going to pick this up from 951 because that seems to be the earliest comment I can see. And it's a YouTube comment, and it's from Carmen Muniz, who says, was Walter Cronkite a good news person? A ton of old folks love him to smithereens. Well,
I don't know.
It seemed to me at the time that he was a pretty good news person. He wasn't an Edward R. Murrow. He maybe wasn't even an Eric Severide, but he was so much better than the people we see now.
Who's this person?
So much better. Cronkite.
Oh God, yeah. I actually remember him for this much. Yep.
He was so much better than what we have now. Of course, when you really want to go and get back to the good ones, the guy you're talking about, is Murrow and Severide. They were very, very honest people. They were no-nonsense people. They would say anything to anybody. But we haven't seen people like that for a very long time. The golden chains have got them.
FCC, when they deregulated the FCC, when they messed that all up.
Yeah, that was
Clinton.
Yeah, that was Clinton. Yeah, that was Clinton. And why did Clinton do it? Well, look how rich he got after he left the presidency.
You remember when he did that? Ted Turner was sitting with him when he signed the damn bill?
Yeah. Yep, I remember. I remember he just sold out all the way. And, of course, he was Obama's model.
What?
He was Obama's model. Obama looked at Clinton and he said, I want that for me and my family. I want to have $100 million after a few years out of the presidency.
Yeah, well, he's got his own life to live, right? I mean, the portion about Obama is that, like, he'll live on his island in his mansion.
right? And he'll protect his daughters. He'll protect his wife. He'll be the father to his family that his father was not to him. That is what he's about. He's about family. He's about protecting his family. He doesn't care anything about the rest of the world. It's just his family that he cares about. He's an amoral familialist, is the technical term for him.
It's, I don't know. I've gotten to this place, Joe, where I worry about society having any sense of what's really right, or even the avenue to execute on that.
Yes, I often feel very discouraged in exactly the same way. But when I feel that way, I keep coming back to the idea. We have children and we have grandchildren, and we just have to keep on fighting. That's the only course, okay, which is open to us.
Well, I mean, I know that the community and the people in the communities, most people are good. But when you get up into how you have to make changes to get us off of this track that we're on, now you're into the halls of corruption, right?
Yes, you are. And you're also into the influences that the halls of corruption have on them.
Which is why it's so important to, in my opinion now, and I never felt this way, Joe, term limits. Term limits, term limits, term limits, term limits, and clear house. Seriously, we have got to upset this power structure. We have to.
Yes.
And you know what? 2 rounds, 3 rounds at the most, and you're out of here. Because if we don't do it that way, Joe, we can't break this mess up.
I think term limits would do a lot, quite a lot, if they were employed systematically across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
got to break it up.
It would stop the oligarchy from forming. It would not give it enough time to form in the same way. If you had someone who was a Speaker of the House, okay, under those conditions, that Speaker of the House would not have been able to be as clever, okay, as Nancy Pelosi. I mean, it's very, very difficult to outfox Nancy Pelosi. Well, she knows all about these little rules and these little changes and, the interstices of all of it, how it relates to everything else, because she spends all her time thinking about that. And
she doesn't think in a vacuum either, Joe.
Right. But she does think about that and how this works, how this machine in Congress works. And she's gotten expert at it over decades.
I'm sure that Nancy has forgotten more about it than most people would ever know.
It may be.
But she's not as sharp as she used to be either. What we have is that iron rule in effect, right? You've got
iron rule in effect, and she knows the implications of the iron rules much, much better, okay, than anybody else. I would say right now, in the House, the only person that may have an understanding of how the rules work to rival hers, probably Katie Porter.
Yes, I would agree. And I would be up for Katie Porter taking over because I'm sure she can get up to speed right quick.
Yeah.
Right quick.
But also Jayapal is...
I don't want Jayapal.
Right, but what I'm telling you is that Jayapal is in Katie Porter's way.
Well, let's get her out of the way.
Well, The way to get her out of the way is vacate the chair. Because of Jayapal's public persona, okay, as a democratic socialist,
Jayapal is no socialist. Who thinks of her that way?
I think that people do think of her that way.
Nope. She's
Well,
no socialist.
I'm telling you, she's going to be charged with that, and she has a past, and she won't be acceptable as Speaker of the House because of that.
You really think so?
I think that's going to dog her. I don't think she's going to be a real candidate for that. She won't be able to compete with the people viewed as more centrist, like the Debbie Dingles, the Jan Schakowskis, okay, and so on. I don't think she'll be able to compete with the Katie Porters for that.
Well, good.
Because Katie Porter is not considered a socialist.
So who says who's allowed to run for speaker?
They can all run for speaker.
They can?
Dingle?
Anybody, once vacate the chair happens. Okay, Pelosi is out of the picture. Then people who want to be her successor can step up, and they can politic, and they can bargain, and they can create the coalitions that they need to be among the leading candidates. And then someone will get a majority of the caucus, okay, at that point.
Well, Katie would probably get a kick out of running against Jayapal, wouldn't she? Because I like this idea. I like this idea.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure that I'm for Katie Porter. And one reason why I'm not entirely sure is I'm kind of afraid maybe the Warren sickness has affected her. But maybe not, because Katie looks like she might be a lot tougher than Warren ever was.
Don't underestimate the dynamic of a new leader with the alliance in the Progressive Caucus.
Yes.
It's going to get the people excited. All bets are off at that point, right?
I think all bets are off. At this point, all I'm pointing out is that I don't think Katie Porter can be tarred with the socialist brush. I think she's sufficiently friendly to the kinds of policies we would like to see that she would be a great improvement over Nancy Pelosi. The primary opposition she would face is from those candidates, but from those House members, okay, and incumbents who are captured by the banks and by Wall Street.
Well, yeah, here we go.
Katie Porter would be
22.
pure anathema. Now,
most women love her.
Yes, I agree.
And more women vote than men.
Right. And I also think that she may still have a chance to win. But I also think that a very good sleeper candidate who has a chance to win is Debbie Dingell. And that she would be very good. And another sleeper candidate with a chance
I have to learn more about Debbie. I don't know enough about Debbie.
Karen Bass.
I've heard Karen Bass. You've brought her up many times.
Yes, I brought her up because I think she's very clever, and she has been a lefty. She's very sunshiny, very friendly. The kind of person people think of as pleasant, okay, and like.
Is she hard enough? She hard enough? She got enough fight in her? Is she vicious enough?
When she was the Speaker of the House in California, she was hard enough at that point.
Okay.
Hard enough to get the Speaker's position and to do a good job in the Speaker's position. And I think she might be tough enough. But the reason why I like the chances, of Dingell is she's the only person who's got contacts in the Problem Solvers Caucus and also in the Progressive Caucus.
Debbie.
Yes. And Debbie also has the following advantage from our point of view. The family business, the literal family business, since since the Second World War, the family business has been Medicare for all.
Ah,
Or there was Medicare for all.
okay.
The family business was Medicare for all. John Dingell's father was for a national health service.
Beautiful.
When John Dingell's father
Oh,
died,
well, wait. So how would that, okay.
okay,
Debbie Dingle sounds like more of a possible socialist than Jai Paul does to me.
when John Dingell's father died or retired, I forget whether he died, he retired, then the person who immediately ran for his seat was John Dingell Jr.
Nice.
John Dingell Jr. then became, if not the longest serving congressman in history, one of the longest serving congresspeople in history. And all of his days in Congress, he was either for National Health Service or for Medicare for All. He was
Nice.
the leading advocate for Medicare for All forever, except maybe for John Conyers, who started writing bills in favor of it. Okay, but John Dingell came out of a similar mindset, and it was sort of handed down from his father. John Dingell first got into Congress, if I'm not mistaken, it was in 1956 or 1958. That is, John Dingell Jr. did. Took over from his father in 1956, okay, or 58. At that time, he was not married to Debbie Dingell. He got married to Debbie Dingell, okay, in about 1980. And she was his wife, his helper, helped him through all his campaigns.
Was she younger than him? Considerably younger than him?
Much younger than him.
Yeah, okay.
She's something like 67 now. When he died, he was something like 89 or 90.
Okay.
If I recall correctly, he died in 2015. I believe the first time she ran for Congress for his seat was in 2016. So she was married to him, even though she was a very young wife. She was married to him for roughly 34 years.
Right.
A very long time. She was very devoted to him. And when she came into Congress, she was running on Medicare for All. When she most recently got elected to Congress, she was talking Medicare for All. When they all voted for Pelosi, okay, on January 3rd, she was talking about kicking Biden's butt and getting Medicare for All.
Okay.
She is a co-sponsor of the Medicare for All bill. She was the leading co-sponsor. She wrote part of H.R. 1976, okay, with J.M. She is also one of the initial co-sponsors of the Green New Deal.
Cool.
She also votes right on every liberal measure. Now, she does take some corporate money. I don't know who she is taking it from, but there were corporations that supported her family for a long time, and I think they still are giving her money. I haven't seen her give up the idea of taking any corporate contributions.
Listen, as long as you're not taking it from energy or pharma, because those are the two things that have us that are going to kill us right now.
Yep.
Energy, pharma, insurance. Pharma and insurance go hand in hand with me, but energy, pharma, and insurance, the rest of it, I can deal with.
Yes, I don't think she's taking money from any of those folks. Okay,
and she's golden in my book.
She has a lock on her seat. She is often very, very outspoken. and she will be a very good leader for the Democrats in the House. I think she's a person who can say no to Joe Biden. That she's a person who can say no to Chuck Schumer.
Schumer. Isn't he on his way?
I don't know if he's on his way out or not. I mean, but to me, it seems like he's kind of swimming around, trying to think like he did as a young representative in Congress, somehow trying to move over to the left, a little more. The people keep talking about a possible challenge from AOC. I don't know if AOC, is going to challenge him because I think she's been making a lot of political mistakes lately. But someone might emerge to challenge Schumer. Someone we're not even looking at now. Like maybe Zephyr Teachout, something like that.
Oh, that would be beautiful, but I don't know. I mean, what's been Chuck has been very puzzling the last year. Very puzzling to me.
He's been very puzzling to me too. I don't.
There's something going on there, Joe.
It seems to me with the ARP, right after the incident occurred, but with the ARP and the parliamentarian, he should have fired her butt.
Well, what do you think's going on, though?
It was his decision alone. Why didn't he fire her butt? I think what's going on is that he and Biden and Nancy Pelosi are together calling the shots.
I do too, but I mean, what do you think's going on?
Or the other. And I think that what he's about is not stepping out of line with respect to calling the shots.
So he's trying to stay under the radar, is what I think. I mean, that's what I see.
He's trying to stay under the radar. He's trying to
He's out of the press.
He's trying to keep the caucus together in the Senate because from his point of view, he doesn't want to push Joe Manchin to the point where Manchin actually does leave the party. Because the minute that Manchin leaves the party, he's no longer the majority leader. And he's been waiting to be the majority leader for years and years and years and years. And he's just gotten it. And he doesn't want to do anything which is going to, to make him lose it. And I think that's one thing that Joe Manchin has over him.
Can I just ask a question? You might, real quick, I'm sidelining here. Sidebar. Is there any chance that Manchin might run for the presidency?
I don't know whether there's a chance that he'll run for the presidency, but I don't think there's any chance at all that he would be acceptable to most people inside of the Democratic Party.
I don't know, Joe. Oh, come on, Joe. You're going to sleep on that one. We'll talk about it tomorrow.
We can talk about it tomorrow.
Sleep on that.
Manchin
roll that around,
establishing a record for himself as such a hated individual that the
left hate it. The left hates him.
Yes, but it's not only the left. I mean, he just looks like such a no guy.
I don't know, Joe. I bet there's a lot of people. I think there are more people that like what Manchin's doing than don't.
He is such an unexciting guy. He has no charisma whatsoever. He's
more charismatic and more exciting than Joe is. Come on. You know it's true. You know I'm right. You know I'm right.
What we're talking about here is he's not going to be running against Joe Biden for the nomination in 2024. If he does run against him, he's not going to get anywhere because the party is going to stand behind Biden because of the deal flow.
Maybe he'll run as a Republican.
If he runs as a Republican, it's going to be up to Trump to withdraw. Trump's not going to withdraw.
Yep. I don't know. There's
Joe
just something
Manchin
going on
can't
there.
run as a Republican. He can't run as a Republican for the Senate in West Virginia.
No.
Probably
Yeah.
Jim Justice is going to run for the Senate. And Jim Justice is going to run as a Trump Republican. Okay, so Manchin, when he has to run for the Senate in 2024, he won't be able to run for the Senate. What he appears to be angling for is to run for governor.
Why? Wasn't he already governor?
Yeah, but he really liked being governor. Supposedly, he doesn't like being senator. Supposedly, he would rather get back to being governor. Okay, because as governor of the state, he was able to enrich himself in various ways that stayed under the radar and that, never got exposed. And here he is in national politics, and all this corruption is being exposed now day by day. I don't think he likes that.
I would think it would be a hell of a lot harder to be a governor than it would be a senator.
It wasn't for him. He had a
Okay, if you do it right, it should be a hell of a lot harder to govern a state than to go sit and write legislation in the Senate.
If you do
it should be harder. I think it would be a much harder job done right.
But of course, he didn't do it right.
There you go.
He sold out, and he got his family rich. He got his daughter rich. He got his son rich. He personally got quite a few dollars from the coal mining business he set his son up in.
So anyhow, energy. Now you've got me thinking about Lamb, because Lamb's going to run for Senate, because you need another extraction state in this area. You need a senator, because the rivers run PA, Ohio, PA, West Virginia.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yep.
Okay.
Carmen Mina says, yes, Lisa, money in politics, democracy for sale. And Carmen says,
democracy sold.
Yeah, it's sold already.
It's sold.
And Carmen says, damn, Jayapal. And Shane says, I think you motivate the progressives by running challenges against them. Running challenges against them from their left. Yes, I think you can motivate them that way.
Yeah, how do you fund them?
Ghostart says, how do you fund them? The same way that these people were funded. You fund them from the grassroots. Why would you be successful at that? Because they've been failures. Why shouldn't the grassroots money shift over to you then?
I'm not giving anybody any money. And I mean, I'm sorry, but that's where I'm at. I'm not giving anybody any money.
Okay, so are you not giving any money to Jason Cole?
Well, I've done that.
Okay.
But I know Jason. I've known him for a while. I know what he means. I understand where he's going. I believe in him 100%.
Okay. So now let's take there are the other two Washington candidates. Okay, there's by Rebecca Parson. She looks pretty strong too, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She looks like someone who might be able to raise money from skeptical progressives. Okay. And then Stephanie Gallardo.
Yeah, Stephanie's great too.
She looks pretty cool too.
She does. She's awesome.
Yeah. So these three people are likely to get contributions from people like me who ain't sending any more money to AOC.
Right. Well, that's true. I guess there's a lot of truth to that. I guess I get it now. The thing is, though, is that we've got to get people to start understanding that electoral is still important. Actions, absolutely, we have to do them. And we have to be in community. But we can't give up on the electoral piece of the puzzle.
Oh, not entirely.
We can't.
We cannot entirely.
I mean, that's what they want us to do. They want us to do that. You realize that.
I realize that.
Best voter suppression out there.
Not giving up on the electoral route. I don't give up on the electoral route. I think we need the direct action. Yes, we need it very, very badly. But it is a supplementation to the electoral route. They work together. They have to work together because eventually we need people in there who are going to say no to what we don't want and who are going to push for what we do want. Now, we have people who ran on that and they are failing us. The proper move is to get rid of them and see if we can't get people who will not fail us. Karen Yunus says, if you're corrupt, you can't throw stones. That's why they can't say no. Yes, and then she says, hashtag free Julian Assange. Shane says, I think you run a primary challenger and third-party candidates. Kostat says, more oranges and milk for all. Sandy says, hi, Kay. Sandy Dagg says, hiya, Sandy, how you doing? And Carmen says, spot on, Lisa. Boomers are fat and happy, so screw everyone else. And Mr. Denise has come in. We're not reading any of Mr. Denise's comments because they're nonsense. And KRTD Media says, hashtag third party vote. And Sandy says, no Trump. And Shane says, I would block that bill if it hurts third parties.
It just needs amended.
Yes, it needs to be amended, and they need to hold out for that. I certainly agree. But that is a must-pass bill because if that bill does not pass, and if there's no chance in 2022 except for the Republicans to take over and prepare the way for Trump, the only route for us then, Shane, is going to be in the streets. It's going to be in the streets, and it's going to be tough in the streets. It's going to be brutal. And the brutality is going to go both ways. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be a struggle for life.
I wish more people realize that.
Steve says, we don't need no stinking bootstraps, just boots. Carmen says, Lady Hulk, Lisa, go get him. You're courageous. And Lana Dell Hates the Clock says, Dr. Joe, you are insane. I think that's not.
Yeah, that's not Lana.
Lana Dell. That's not Lana Dell. It's not my friend, Lana Dell.
Right.
Certainly the case. And Sandy Degg says Obama needs to go away. And then we get a number of other statements by the so-called Lana Dell. And then Ghostart says, being a war criminal should be a deal breaker. It should be a deal breaker. The war criminals should have been prosecuted. And there are a number of highly visible war criminals who should have been prosecuted. Cheney, Bush, Obama. He was a war criminal. There's no getting around that.
I think all presidents end up being war criminals these days.
Maybe
And
so.
head of state.
Maybe so, but if Bush is going to be prosecuted, then Obama has to be prosecuted too, because he did some of the same things as Bush. And Shane says there are multiple Lana Del trolls. I know. And Shane says he and
Well,
Trump.
they're impersonating her account. She needs to report them as imposters.
Yes, she does. And Shane says, I need a team. Yes, you do need a team, Shane. We got to put a team together. Sandy says, ride equals tide. Shane says, I'm trying here to control them, but there are so many Lana trolls. And
Why
Lana,
are they going after Lana?
huh?
Why are they going after Lana?
Oh, they're going after many of us with these false accounts. One reason why they're especially going after Lana is because they're going after me. Okay, and Lana is someone who they perceive is close to me. And Shane says, Comrade Misty. And Shane says, Comrade Misty is about to do a KRTD show. And Shane says, she's awesome. And Ghostart says, I can't see anything but troll. BL says, what is that con Obama trying to pull now? What can we do right now? I think we answered that in the conversation, BL. And
the filibuster, everybody. We've got to concentrate on that and vacating the chair.
Yep, those are two things we have to
filibuster first.
And if we pass if there are any voting rights bills or anything like that, that's passed. We have to use Article 3, Section 2 and deal the Supreme Court out. They cannot be a factor, or we will lose the new voting rights bills. KRTD Media says there are 5 Lana Del accounts here, at least. And Lana says, calculator. That's a false Lana, that latest one that's saying calculator. That's a bot. Sandy says, vacate the chair. Shane says, the Progressive Caucus won't do it. I'm afraid they won't. And BL says, how did someone make so many of those KRTD Media? And KRTD Media says, I don't know. Lana says, I can't see any, so it must be those I blocked by yesterday. Could be. Carmen says, snatch that chair from underneath Mama Bear and seat Goldilocks. Bingo. Goldilocks is right. Sandy says, so how do we put pressure on her? Elvira says, I agree. Jayapal needs a backbone. And Melissa Green then floats a number of trollish comments, which I am just scrolling through. And Elvira says, good idea. Start a vacate the chair campaign. And Melissa Green has a number of other troll comments. And where are we now? Let's see. I scrolled down too fast, lost a lot of their comments. Here it is. Ghostot says, London establishes war criminals are in charge. And Sandy Degg says, Nancy likes her power. And Lana says, what is the iron rule? There's no one iron rule. There are a number of rules in the House that govern the activity of the House. And these rules are consistent with establishing an oligarchy in the House. That's how the oligarchy in the House got established, through the construction of these rules. Okay, among them, the rules governing seniority. Very, very important. Elvira says, how about Rashida Tlaib? I like her spunk. Okay, I like some of the legislative work she's done, and I like her spunk as well. But she is one of those perceived as so far left that I don't think she's a possibility for the speakership. If it were possible to get her into the speakership, I'd go that way tomorrow. I mean, I think that she'd be a great speaker, but it's just not a possibility. What you have to remember is the speaker candidate involved has to get a majority of the caucus, and will have to make certain concessions to the rightist part of the caucus too, so that they will vote for that person as well. The one thing I will say about the Speaker of the House for the Democrats that I think is completely predictable is that that speaker will be a woman once again. I think that is sure to happen.
I like women.
I like women
in
too.
the speakership. I do. I don't like Nancy in the speakership at all. But I like women.
I like women for the speakership because there are many good speaker candidates who are women. And I don't right now see any good speaker candidates who are men.
You know, I don't see a lot of male politicians having any credibility. They
Uh,
don't.
uh,
They just don't get behind
in
things.
the House, I don't think there are any male politicians in the House right now. Maybe one or two. Okay, like maybe Jamie Raskin.
Yeah, but they don't have the kind of when they stand up and get behind something. Okay, when a woman is behind something, she tells you why, right? Unless it's unpopular, but I just don't see the men. Not all of them, but right now I don't see the men getting up in a way that makes you feel like, wow, he's really behind that for the right reasons, or he's got a great case to make for that. Now, there are a few who are doing great stuff,
You're
and
right.
by and large, women are doing better job.
Jamie Raskin. Okay, one is Jamie Raskin. A second one who is doing good stuff and who is very credible is also Joe Neguse, okay, of Colorado.
Oh, okay.
He is a very good one.
And Yarmouth just announced he's not running again.
Yeah, I know. He's not running again. Also, there's another person who's very good. He's among the brightest people in Congress, if not the brightest. But I think he's about to get out too. And Lloyd Doggett, okay, his name, and he has some very good candidates who say they're going to run for office, and they're more progressive than he is. I don't think there's anything that can probably make him stay in Congress, but maybe a vacate the chair bill where he somehow ended up as the Speaker of the House, that might persuade him to stay in Congress. But
and you know what else I want to say about these
guys? From my standpoint, I don't think that would be worth it. Okay, in other words, there's very good women candidates like Karen Bass, okay, Debbie Dingell, Jan Schakowsky. There's also Rosa DeLauro. Nobody talks about Rosa DeLauro.
Maybe I just don't come across what she's up to very often. That might be it.
What she's up to usually is doing things for children. She's behind the child tax credit stuff. She's been advocating for that for years. She's behind paid family leave. She was the leader of the resistance to the TPP, okay, and the other trade deals that were so corrupt and so corporate. She was fighting against them every step of the way, and she almost won. She only lost by a few votes. And she would have won except for Nancy Pelosi's machinations.
So we need to start following these people and on Twitter, put their accounts on alerts, start following what they're up to so that we can push them because they need to know that the people are behind them.
Right. Okay. So I have a list of 6 of those people. I think my whole list is comprised, okay, of women who I think would be credible candidates. I don't recall, but I don't think there was a male on that list. And Ghostart says Clinton Tandon in 2024. Oh, God.
Oh, I hope so. Oh, God.
God. Carmen says, when Taylor Greene confronted Debbie about abortion, Debbie should have told her, how can you talk about right to life and you eat meat every day?
Oh, I heard about this dust up. Didn't this just recently happen?
Probably. I don't know. I didn't hear about that.
I did hear about it.
So Sandy Begg says Debbie sounds good. And Shane says, go start. That ticket is awful. And Shane says, I actually like the NHS better than Medicare for all. Won't there be more advantages? Yes, there would be more advantages. Could we possibly pass the NHS in this country? If you think it's hard to pass Medicare for all in this country,
Yeah, I don't never
NHS would be
never go.
possible. If we were to get an NHS, the only way for that to happen would be to get Medicare for all first. Then maybe people could be talked to about, having, an NHS. But that's a step further down the road. And Ghostart says, John Jacob Dingelheimer Schmidt. I have no idea who that is.
That's a song.
Okay, that's a song.
From a musical.
Okay.
And I don't remember which musical.
It sounded like that. Carmen Muniz says, great connection, Lisa. Emerald, Big Farmer. And Shane says, yes, but the Democrats' version of the Green New Deal isn't good enough. We need the Green Party version of the Green New Deal. You bet. The Democrats' version has some giveaways in it. You're absolutely right, Shane. Not only are you absolutely right, but Bernie's version of the Green New Deal wasn't even good enough. If you compare Bernie's version at $16.2 trillion with Howie Hawkins' version at $42 trillion, there's really no comparison. Howie Hawkins' version is just so much better as policy.
We can't even get a 3.5 trillion over 10 years, which is such a damn joke.
It is. It is a total damn joke. And Shane says, and doesn't do nearly enough. Shane says AOC no longer has the political instincts to beat Schumer.
I don't know if she ever did.
Well, she's shown she has the wrong political instincts. If she had the right ones, she would have doubled down as a lefty. Instead, she's running as fast as she can towards the center. I mean, we all see that. And we know what's going to happen is the left that put her in is going to bleed away. And her national constituency, is going to bleed away. And if those two things should bleed away, she can't possibly beat Schumer. Can't possibly beat Schumer. But the only way for her to beat Schumer was to build that lefty ground machine throughout the whole state of New York with all the people personally committed to her. That would be the only way to win over the tremendous money advantage that Schumer would have over her.
Who's the other senator in New York? Schumer and who else?
It's Kirsten Gillibrand, who's been moving left, by the way, gradually moving left, always seeming to be at Bernie's elbow. Strangely, yeah. Yeah. And if you look at the presidential debates last time, she was probably the person who, in her comments and statements, was probably the one who was most kindly to Bernie in those debates. She's a co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. She would probably be a co-sponsor, of the Medicare for All bill. She used to be Hillary's protege. No more. No more, not anymore. Why? I think she sees the way the wind, is blowing, and not the political wind, but she sees the necessity of getting behind policies that will produce a Green New Deal. She sees the existential crisis.
Thank God.
She's
got a conscience. Is basically what you're saying.
I think she has.
Because that's how I'm looking at this anymore. You either have a conscience or you don't.
I think she has a conscience, and the other strength she has in the current political climate is that she also fits into the identity politics orientation, of the Democratic Party. In other words, she can play the identity politics game. So she can play both of those games. But she wasn't really strong enough at it in 2020. If she was, she would have been a much more formidable candidate.
Nobody was strong enough except Bernie on the Democratic side. They had to pull in the Great Hope and Changey guy and co-opt the whole damn thing.
That's right. And Shane says AOC no longer has the political instincts to beat Schumer, and she says Schumer signed onto a bunch of Warren's bills on student debt, trying to look lefty. Yes, I know he has.
I don't understand what's going on with Chuck. He still bewilders the heck out of me.
Well, it may help to know that when he was young, when he first got into Congress, he was running pretty much as a progressive. And that was popular in his district. And his background...
That was like 100 years ago. But yes.
But his background is similar to Bernie's. They went to high school together, the same high school.
Did they? Were they in like the same? No, Schumer's younger than Bernie, is he not?
Schumer's younger than Bernie. They weren't in the same class.
Okay.
But they went to the same high school. And another person who went to that high school, Howie Klein.
Really?
But yes, you know who Howie Klein is?
That name is coming. I think we had this discussion, but remind me.
Yeah, okay. He was a Hollywood type, for a long time. Actually making movies in Hollywood.
Okay.
And, making some money at it.
Mm-hmm.
He retired and he went either, I forget if it was to Tennessee, or to Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
But he started a blog called Down with Attorney. And he is Democratic Party all the way.
Oh.
And he's behind the Blue America fundraising operation, which is more lefty than the Act Blue fundraising operation.
Okay.
It's an operation for the support, of candidates. One very good thing that Howie Klein did is he supported me in 2010 when I tried and succeeded, in organizing the Fiscal Sustainability Teach and Counter Conference, which was an MMT conference in D.C. in opposition to the Peterson Fiscal Summit.
Oh, wow.
And we only raised a paltry amount of money that. We raised a total of $5,500. We weren't even able to pay all the expenses. But we couldn't have held the conference without the help, of Howie Klein. He gave us a fundraising vehicle that got us enough money that we could hold a full-day conference, at George Washington. By the way, the products of which are still on the web. The speakers at that conference were Bill Mitchell. For my money, if there's a number one in MMT in the world, it is Bill Mitchell.
Nice.
The number two MMTer in the world, who many people think is the number one MMTer, specifically Warren Mosler. He was at that conference. The most visible MMTer in the world right now, the most famous one, Stephanie Kelton. She was at that conference.
What was the name of the conference again?
It was called the Fiscal Sustainability Teach-In Counter Conference. And you can search for it, on by YouTube, and you can see not only a number of the speeches by the main conference people, but there are recordings of the Q&As, full recordings, of the Q&As, where all of the issues relating to MMT was surfaced at that conference. They were very, very smart people, at that conference. Quite a number of them actually became MMT bloggers later.
Is this what year? 15?
2010. April 28th.
Okay.
April 28th of 2010. The person who did the speech on inflation at the conference was someone, but was a guy by the name of Marshall Auerbach. He's an investor. He later went to work for Soros. Okay, and he became a sort of public face for Soros, having interviews, okay, with various people. He left there, okay, and went back to investing. But he was very well known in MMT circles between, let's say, 2005 and 2013, and still is friends with the top people, okay, in the MMT world, including Stephanie. Okay. So anyway, he did the piece on inflation, and the final talks were given by Randy Ray, who I think most people would agree is the number 3 MMTer in the world. Okay, and also Randy Ray's, shall we say, protege at the time, who was actually Pavlina Chernyeva, who is now the most well-known name in relation to the MMT job guarantee. Randy Ray used to be the person who was at the top of the job guarantee idea. And he still is very formidable, okay, in that area. But, of course, the one who's been doing the most famous work in that area is Pavlina. So those were the speakers at that conference. And except for Marshall, those are the ones who are most prominent in MMT today. They were all at that conference. Okay, so
much homework. Give
Yeah.
you so much homework, Joe. I love you for it.
Schumer signed onto a bunch of orange bills on student debt, trying to look a lefty. Shane says he's wanted to be majority leader for a long time. He finally got it. KRTD Media says, let Manchin leave the party. And he says, fuck Chuck Schumer. And it may come to that, where you just have to give Manchin the choice. Okay. I personally think he will not leave the party. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not going to vote to tank both bills. He may end up actually doing that.
Kill both bills?
Well, he's not going to vote against the infrastructure bill, but if the progressives insist that the infrastructure bill doesn't get passed until the reconciliation bill gets passed,
Oh, and
then,
we've just wasted a whole bunch of time, right? I mean, that's what this is going to come down to. They just purposely wasted all this time.
right, but he wants the infrastructure bill to be passed because there's a lot of money in that infrastructure bill for his donors.
If the Democrats don't cut the crap out of that thing.
Yep. So Gostar says Antifa ain't got no time for this, or ain't got time for this. Yes, I guess that is Antifa. And Carolina says Schumer needs to sit his ass down in his recliner and play with the grandkids instead of helping to kill ours. And Shane says, now the generic Dems don't like him. And Shane says they use him as the villains. Ghostart says between two Joes. Andy Deggs says no one is going to vote for that giant. And then he leaves, she leaves the poo symbol, which I can just barely see on this interface. Yeah, it's, the pile of poo icon. And Shane says Trump will be the president in 2024, sadly.
Shane, stop it.
Yes, he may not be the president in 2024 for any number of reasons, including the fact he may die from all the McDonald's foods he eats.
I just cannot believe that I mean, it's not that I am in disbelief. That is not going to happen. It cannot happen. And if it does happen, I've got an exit strategy because I ain't living here through that again. I'm just not. But I don't think it's going to come to that. I really don't. I don't think we're going to get much better, but I don't think that's going to happen again.
Well, it may turn out that for one reason or another that Trump is not able to run in 2024. And what we might actually get then is someone who's more clever than Trump, who will play it more cleverly, who will still do things that are very, very bad, but who will present a reasonable face to people and a more moderate face to people, who will know when to back off, and when not to back off. And he will go about a systematic campaign of consolidating authoritarian power. I expect that to happen. I don't know who it'll be, Josh Hawley. I'm not sure.
Women are not going to elect him. That's not. I don't think that this country is as hoodwinked as a lot of people think they are. I really don't. But let's just hold off on that.
Who are we looking at from the Democratic side?
Running for president?
Who is going to stop them? Is it going to be Biden or Harris?
No, of course not. They're tools. We knew that. We knew that when we voted for them. It's not them. We have to remember, we're not even a year into this yet. We still got 3 years to go. This is why we got to kill the filibuster so that the stars and people can rise to the top, so that people can start coming out. And the honeymoon is over, folks.
Yes, the honeymoon.
We've got 3 years.
Absolutely right. We've got 3 years. We've got to use those 3 years to pass.
We've got to give them camera time. We got to get Joe out of the works. We've got to let these people work together. It's their time to stand up. I don't want Warren on that goddamn stage again. I mean, I could give you a list, right?
Right. But
this for 7-8 years.
Okay, that to realize. If we can fight and stop the takeover of the Congress in 2023, then maybe we can pass the bills that we're failing to pass now, that can control gerrymandering, and voter suppression. But it will be very important at that point that if we're successful in passing bills like that, that we have to cut the Supreme Court out. Because one thing that the courts
we don't want anything going to the Supreme Court
have been doing is that when there's a reform passed to roll back some of this very bad stuff, then it often happens that the courts will rule that the new laws are passed too close to an election and they can't go into effect until after the election.
God, because somebody
and we have to stop that crap. If the new law is passed 1 month before the election, let's make it effective the day after it's passed and force the states to conform to the new law. It doesn't matter what the time limit is. If a law is effect on election day, it has to be applied on election day. The states have to be forced to do it. The Supreme Court has to be cut out. But none of this notion they have to have a reasonable time to adjust. No. Whenever we can get these bills through, the bills have to be effective the next day. None of this waiting around, because there's no time to wait around. And Shane says, the right wing of the party would have been Elizabeth Warren, the center of the party, Bernie Sanders, the left of the party, Madeline Hoffman types. He's saying that would have been the case if not for the DLC and its effect on the Democratic Party.
I mean, we all realize that Harry Truman was more left than what we've got now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Way more. Way more.
Absolutely way more than what we have now. For that matter, so was John Kennedy, and so was Lyndon Johnson. They were way more than what we have now. I actually think the turn to the right started, with Jimmy Carter. Not that he was so right-wing in many of the areas of policy, but when it came to domestic fiscal policy, he was the governor who had to balance the budget all the time, who had to be fiscally responsible. He tried to pull that, and he prepared the way for all of the Austerians later. Basically, gave them credibility in Washington. Gave them a part, in the campaigns. I mean, for God's sakes, Peter Peterson got a foothold with the kind of stuff that Carter was dealing out.
He was really, really smart. Did he know how bad that was going to be for everybody, or did he not?
No, he did not. He was very, very smart man in many ways, but he was an engineer.
Right, he was.
Not a social scientist. And he did not understand the full implications of what he was doing in politics. He had been trained in politics at the state level.
Right.
You do certain things at the state level. Progressivism means something different at the state level than it does at the federal level. And the difference is because of the fiscal outlook at the federal level is far different. He never understood that. He never understood, that deficits were perfectly all right at the federal level. So he crippled his own programs. He spent too little on environmental programs and climate programs.
Here we go. This is what we're going to do again.
Even though he knew the danger. If he had been reelected in by 1980, we would have been a lot further along in getting on top of the climate crisis than we are now. We had a generation wasted after he was defeated in 1980. And why was he really defeated in 1980? It was because he couldn't handle the economic crisis at that time.
Well, yeah.
He attributed the inflation to federal deficits. It had nothing to do with federal deficits. It was the damn Saudis.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it was
trying to cut back the deficits. He should have been trying to deficit spend so people would not suffer due to the inflation. And he should have been trying to replace the Saudi oil to get alternative sources. He did try that in part. He freed up the natural gas market, but everything was too late. It eventually benefited the Reagan administration.
Yeah, it did. It did. And then he had all that crap going on with the Iran
Federal Reserve and Paul Volcker.
All the hostages too.
Yeah, all the hostages.
That was a mess.
Right, but the hostages...
That's really what sunk him.
That was what sunk him, but it never would have sunk him if he had been successful in dealing with the economic problems. If he had instead spent into the inflation while trying to control prices. Very tough wage and price controls he needed at that time. World War II standard wage and price controls at that time. But he wouldn't do it because he really wasn't a New Dealer.
Yeah, nobody was doing that stuff then.
Actually, Nixon was doing some little amount in wage and price controls, but neither Nixon nor Carter did sufficiently well in wage and price controls to contain the inflation. That was the only way to contain the inflation at that time. Wage controls, price controls, and rationing. And you just had to do it and call on the country to tolerate it until the alternative sources of energy, were ready. It would have been only a few years, but Carter could have made an appeal to the nation to tolerate that. Yes, the Iran situation really messed him up. That wasn't his fault, of course. But it wasn't the thing, that undercut him. It was the mismanagement of the economy and the appointment of Paul Volcker, who made things vastly worse by raising interest rates again and again.
So
and
bad.
Again.
Aren't we up to like 20% at one point?
The prime rate was up to 22% at one point.
Jesus, it's a wonder we didn't implode.
It's a wonder we didn't implode. Right. But of course, the Carter administration imploded. That was what really created the sense of dissatisfaction that led people to consider that possibly Reagan would be a better president. When Reagan first started running, people thought, this is ridiculous. This guy is ridiculous. But
he was an actor.
Yeah, he was an actor. Okay.
We're running late tonight, Joe.
Yeah, we're running late because we have so much to talk about.
I know.
Okay, I think that we may be. Well, I'm getting closer to the end here, so let's see what I can do.
Okay.
Okay, so okay, I'll skip a few. Shane says the right wing of the party would have been Elizabeth Warren over. He did say that already. Carmen says, I donate to Jen, Jen Perelman, this is, when I get my back pay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
is Jen running again?
I think Jen Perelman is going to run again.
Did she announce?
I don't know whether she has formally announced yet, but she will be running again.
Okay.
I think she's pretty good. There's some vibe, I get from her that she would not be as strong as the three Washington candidates. I get an impression of real strength from all three, of them. From Jen, well, how do you feel about Jen, Lisa?
I just didn't get the impression that she was going to run again. So this is sort of a surprise to me. I didn't get that feel from her. If she does run again, I liked her first candidacy. I don't see someone who's in candidate prep mode right now from Jen. I don't see it. So.
Okay, but if she were in that mode, how would you compare her to the three Washington candidates?
Well, I don't know if they're comparable, Joe. And let me tell you why. She's in Florida. They're in Washington State. I mean, the two places couldn't be more different. Okay?
Yeah, the places are different. And her particular district has a lot of old people in it too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can compare the two. They're like apples and lug nuts. They're not the same. Yeah. But I like Jen. I like her.
Right, and I'll tell you this, about her also. She'd be a great improvement over Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Oh God, I mean,
we always keep that in mind. Just being able to get rid of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was one of the defectors on the TPP, one of the 28 who made it possible to pass the TPP. I'm sorry, or the TPA, actually, not the TPP, never passed for various other reasons. But if Clinton had won, the TPP would have passed because the TPA passed. And that would in part have been due to what Debbie Wasserman Schultz did. Anyway, Carmen says, fascist Florida is hiring unvaccinated cops specifically. So if you protest, you might get killed in more ways than one. And Lana Dell says, thank you for recognizing that comment was not me. And she says, I can't see or hear the imposters. Sandy says, Lana's a strong woman. She certainly is. She comes from Jersey.
Lana comes from Jersey?
Lana comes from New Jersey.
My goodness, that woman's been around, hasn't she? She's lived in Illinois and okay, yeah, she's okay. Yes, Lana is pretty damn
Fargo. She's worked for Wells Fargo, and they, they move her around. I think she's got a good position though up in Minnesota now. She may be there for a while. So Steve Gonzo says, day 2 to defense, 6:30 p.m. Hashtag blow the whistle for Julian. Hashtag free Julian Assange now. Hashtag free Donziger.
Yes, free Donziger. Free Julian.
Too, but one thing at a time.
Donziger had to report today.
It was?
He had to report to jail today.
He had to report to jail. I thought that he was on appeal.
No, they said he had to report to jail today at like 4:30.
So where was he going to jail?
He didn't even know. He had to report to the courthouse, and then they were going to send him.
Okay, Shane says, for me, Karen Bass isn't left enough. Rosa DeLauro and Katie Porter and Debbie Dingle would be fine for me. I think Karen Bass is more lefty. Well, I don't know that she's more lefty than Katie Porter, but I think she's more lefty than either Rosa. Well, I don't know. I don't know what I'm prepared to say, okay, about that. Based on their official records, Karen Bass is more lefty than any of the other ladies. But when you look at her tendencies to work with people and her style, okay, of working with people, she may not be as strong for what she believes in, okay, as any of the other three. So I'm reading something into the personalities of those 4 people that I think I see. But based on her campaigning and what she's been for in the past and what she advocates for, Karen Bass seems the most lefty of those 3. And if they all were to run for speaker, the rap against Karen Bass would be that she's too lefty compared to the others.
How long's Karen Bass been in?
Huh?
Is Karen Bass seasoned? She been there a while?
I think by the election of 2022, she will have been in there for at least 6 years, maybe 8 years.
Okay, good. So long enough to wield some power. All right.
Yeah, to wield some power. The same is true for Debbie Dingle. She would have been in a similar amount of time. Okay, in Rosa DeLauro's case, she is a veteran of many, many years. She knows everybody. She has worked with everybody. She knows all the parliamentary tricks. She's married to Stan Greenberg.
Stan Greenberg, help me. I don't know.
Stan Greenberg is not a name for you. He is a Democratic pollster from way, way back. He is the most lefty of the pollsters on the Democratic side. In my view, I think the internal discussions of that family must be very, very interesting. Okay, indeed.
You know, the only thing that makes me a little but then I know why it's happening. Like when you talk about these people in Congress and you like them, and I think to myself, why don't I know who they are? And then I just remember that, well, Congress hasn't really been working real hard the way that they're supposed to. That's the thing, right? You don't know who the people are because you don't see them working, which is hard.
Right, but okay, in Rosa DeLauro's case, she's been working for a strengthening of the welfare state for a very, very long time. That's consistent in her background and her work, okay, in Congress. She's tried to work within the system in Congress. Personally, she's close to Pelosi, okay, and personally, she's close to people in all parts of the caucus. She has a lot of friends in the caucus. From a personal point of view, she would probably be the most acceptable of the candidates. Following her in that respect is probably Jan Schakowsky. The others we've been talking about would not be as personally acceptable, except maybe for Debbie Dingell. Okay, and the reason for that, of course, is she was married to John Dingell, and she knows these people from campaign contexts and party contexts for a very long time. She's worked with them, okay, for a very long time. She has friends in the Problem Solvers Caucus, and she has friends in the Progressive Caucus. Everybody likes her. Big advantage. Kostat says, be sure to get your at no risk toddlers, Jabba Jabba DO'd. I don't know what that means. And Ghostart says, free Danziger. Indeed, free Danziger. Sandy Deck says, the Music Man. And Carmen says, by energy and big pharma. And Ghostart says, we're cooked. Yeah, maybe. Sandy says, Kay, you should try watching Joe on YouTube. He may see your comments. Yeah, I would see your comments on YouTube. Sandy says, I love you too, Kay. Have a good night. And by the way, Kay, I know you probably can't hear me, or maybe you can hear me, but we miss you very much here. And we have no idea why we cannot see you on the comment thread. I really wish we could. And Shane says, I actually don't hate Kirsten Gillibrand like the post office banking thing. Now she's for postal banking. Yeah, that's an interesting thing that she's for that. That's a very important thing to get in. And Sandy says, love equals live, laugh out loud. In a way it does. And Shane says, Warren was going to get the progressives who wanted a female and cared about that. No Kirsten Gillibrand. No Kirsten Gillibrand. It wasn't her time. Warren was sucking her oxygen away. Partly Warren and partly Sanders. But, if you figure Gillibrand was in the space between the establishment and Sanders, okay, and a little to the right of Sanders, she was in the same space, okay, as Warren, and Warren was sucking up the energy in that space, so Gillibrand just never caught on.
There's things about Gillibrand, though, that I really don't like. Stances that she's taken that I really don't like. So, I don't know. We'll see. People change. People change.
Any stances she's taken in the last 6 years that you don't like?
Yeah, and I can't put my fingers on them because I've been thinking I've only got so much RAM, Joe, but there are things about her that I remember that just ugh. In the last 6 years, and I don't know if they had to do with healthcare or not.
She was a sponsor of Senate Bill 1829, okay, which was Bernie Sanders' old bill.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of sponsors of Bernie's bill, but when push came to shove, they weren't really sponsors.
But she was right behind. She was right beside him when he put forward that bill, and he said at the time that she helped him to write it.
Okay, but she wasn't behind it when she ran.
Well, she kind of was. I
don't
think
so.
she did not cave on that as much as Warren did. She did not cave on that as much as Harris did. She was more resistant to the pressure, but we'd have to check that out. I have a hazy memory about that too. Okay, because I don't have enough RAM either.
I know. I mean, there's just too much. There's too much to try and remember.
Yeah,
It really is. But yes.
And Lana asks or says, but Pavlina was there too. Okay, and Rowan. I don't know if Rowan was at that conference. He was a Columbia student at that time, and he organized some events where MMPs were speaking. Okay, I guess about a year later, and he had a good deal more money from the Columbia funds there, and was able to draw on them to get more people there. And he had a lot of good videos, okay, that were produced from his efforts, but from Warren, from Stephanie, from Scott, about Fulweiler, and from Randy, and from others there too. And Steve says Pavlina's new design Poland book just dropped. Oh, she did a book on Poland? That's interesting. I hadn't realized she was working on that. Sandy says, I hope Trump goes to jail. Yeah, I think we all do that. Boy, that would let us off the hook with respect to him. But boy, the Republicans are still going to go with a terrible candidate. I mean, they might go with Ron DeSantis.
Please. I mean, that.
Yeah. And Shane says, if it's Trump against Harris, it's Trump. Yeah, I know.
Well, yeah, for sure. Are the Democrats really going to be that obvious? Because at this point, it's just obvious. If they're going to run Harris against Trump, it's that obvious.
Yes. Okay. It's that obvious. It all depends upon how the deal flow is looking at that time. The Democratic Party seems to be controlled by the consultants. And what the consultants care about is whether their deal flows are going to be disturbed.
Oh, for God's sake.
BL says, I like India Walton. I think everyone should phone back.
I do too. I love India. Love her, love her, love her.
Yes, I like India Walton as well. I think we're all India Walton's in her corner. We're all in her corner.
Is her election on Tuesday?
I don't know offhand.
Yeah, I think it might be.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it is.
Yeah, I think it is too, actually, now that I recall. Shane says, Josh Hawley polled at 0% among all Republicans. Oh, that's good to know. And Shane says, no one will run against Harris or Biden. I think you're talking about no Democrat.
Oh, somebody will.
Harris or Biden.
There will be a challenge, I think. I think there will be. First of all, I just don't think that Biden's going to be there term 2. I don't think they're going to want him there term 2.
Well, there's still 3 years to go until the election.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot can happen, okay, in the 3 years. A lot can happen to his health. I mean, it's
all kinds of stuff.
And steady.
But I mean, like Kamala, her numbers, and she's coming down into the 20s now, isn't she?
I think so. Her numbers are terrible.
I mean, her numbers are worse than anybody's ever.
Yeah. But she has a way of putting her foot in her mouth.
Yeah,
all the
she
time.
does.
All the time.
Yeah.
And Shane says, Warren wouldn't be the worst thing, but her time was 2016. She missed her chance. Yes, she did. She was stupid not to have run with Bernie's support in 2016. Shane says she destroyed her reputation.
And then she doubled down and did it again.
Yeah. And Ghostart says, no real lefties bought EW's BS. Well, that's true. And Ghostart says Brazil is further left. Well, in some ways, but not there yet. We have to wait to see what happens, okay?
Oh.
So things can swing either way down there. Steve Day says here, and Ghostart says Kamala Wiener. Kamala Wiener? Who's Wiener? In 24.
Oh, Wiener. Anthony Weiner.
Anthony Weiner. Yeah. Anthony Weiner. I don't think Anthony Weiner is anywhere. I mean, I have no idea where Anthony Weiner is now.
I thought
He is sent, boy, did he ever ruin his career. That was incredible. He just,
You know what's sad is he wasn't a bad politician. His policies weren't bad.
yes, I know, but he just couldn't control himself.
Well, okay. So he got found out. I hate to say it that way, but yeah. Joe, it's almost midnight.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
But if you would like to leave, Lisa, please feel free.
Okay, so I just want to tell everybody thank you very much for this, because this was great, Joe. I loved having this conversation. So thank you for having me. Thank you, Bonnie. And I really think we should have Misty on. Comrade Misty.
Okay, so do I. Okay, I think I have at least part of a program to have her on Saturday, October 30th.
Just let her ask her, see if she can make it happen. I'd love to have her on. And other than that, I am getting very, very tired. So I'm going to say goodnight. But thank you, everybody.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
And thank you very much, Lisa. It was a wonderful conversation.
It really was, Joe. I really enjoyed this so much.
I will speak to you tomorrow. Well, I'm not
Yes,
sure
I do need to talk to you tomorrow.
speak to you, but we will certainly speak
Tomorrow.
through Twitter, and we can talk by phone. If you
Yep, that'd be great.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
And Lana says Carter and John McCain, graduates of the Naval Academy. Yeah, but Carter was a much, much nicer guy than John McCain. Shane says John McCain was right on certain issues, but banking regulation is one that comes to mind. John McCain was brought to banking regulation the hard way. The hard way. He almost went to jail in the early days of his career because he was kind of caught in a banking scandal. In the savings and loan scandal, he was one of the senators who was caught up in that. After that, he became very careful and very much a proponent of banking regulation. Kara TD Media says just not on foreign policy. Okay, I will do that as soon as I can. I have to give people some chance. Well, I am just about at the end, actually. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Okay, October 30th, Shane, is this coming Saturday. And that is the soonest time that I can have her. I have actually Stephanie Gallardo scheduled to come back and finish up if she wants to on Saturday. She hasn't actually given me a definite on that, but I'll certainly have room on Saturday for Misty to come on and to talk over the various issues with her. So anyway, good night, Lana. Good night to you. Thank you very much for coming. And Dolores, thank you also very much for coming. I will try to resolve the technical problem with the moderation by that time. Steve Day says, hashtag Day of the Dead. Sandy says, thank you, Joe, Bonnie, and everyone. Have a great night. Indeed, everyone, have a great night. Bonnie and I will have a great night. You can be sure of that. And we're going to have a great day tomorrow as well. Thanks a lot for coming.